said. Good afternoon. This hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on October 11th, 2023, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaws and Regulations. My name is Karen Lattin, and I serve as the Vice Chair. Today's hearing is being broadcast live on Channel 8 and is being recorded on the on-demand archives available on the town's website. It is being conducted in person, by phone, and by video conference. The agenda, instructions on how to attend, and copies of documents for review are posted on the town's website. To all participants, whether attending by phone or online, please remain muted unless you have been recognized by the Vice Chair. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. If you are attending by phone, you can mute and unmute by using *6. If you're online and you are not a commissioner, please keep your camera turned off unless you have been recognized and indicate that you wish to speak by using the raised hand feature. So that we have a record of a quorum, I will now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Bob Rawls.
Present.
Bob Del Vecchio.
Present.
Mary Sullivan.
Present.
Elise Gordon.
Present.
Cheryl Meservey.
Present.
And I am here. We have established that we have a quorum. Before we begin the agenda, are there any announcements about any requests for continuances today, Paul?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, on the agenda under enforcement orders, 65 Geranium Drive, Elaine E. Dixon, map 8D, parcel 16-R2A, unauthorized removal of topping of trees in a resource area, and 77 Geranium Drive, Lawrence P. I always have trouble with his name.
Capodilupo.
Capodilupo, revocable trust, map 8D, parcel 17-R2, unauthorized removal and topping of trees in a resource area. Both of those matters have been requested to be continued to the first available hearing in November.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
At this point, Paul Whiteman, our conservation agent, will now lead us through the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First on the agenda is a request for an order of conditions. The address is 498 and 500 Shore Road, 498 Shore Road LLC, 500 revocable trust for Stephen A. Barrington and Stacy A. Barrington, map 16G, parcels 3D A5 and 3E A6, SE10 3645. The project is work to construct and maintain beach access, stairway over a coastal bank, a portable rinse station, installation of a storage locker, restore previously approved mitigation, and perform a bank stabilization project.
Thank you. All right. Do any commissioners have anything to add, change, whatever, to the order of conditions as it stands now?
I added comments to the shared document.
Do you want to read those?
I can
or do
go.
you want me
Yeah,
to?
I can go through those. Yeah.
Okay.
There are not many. Just added a finding. I believe it's finding that just noting that during the hearings for the project, the proposed stairs over the fiber roll array to the beach was withdrawn pending resolution of neighbor easements to the beach.
Great. Anything else?
And I think that's it. Yeah. No, I had one more. Dad, under the special condition 20, on the item about invasive plant management, I added, wait a minute, is that me? Oh, yeah, that's right. I added just a note, an internal note, that on the latest restoration plan that the requested plant diversity was provided, but that the change notes say that 15 bayberry while the plant list says 35 bayberry. So there's just an inconsistency. Just need to find out what the applicants wanted there, but I think it should be one or the other.
Okay. Is there anybody here for 498 and 500 who could speak to that?
Good afternoon. For the record, Seth Wilkinson. The change to the, on the planting plan was identified in a little cloud call-out. So the current number is 35 bayberry and 15 beach plum.
That's what I was assuming, but over in the, on the plan update notes, the change log, it says 15, so I think it probably should be changed. There's a discrepancy, that's all. I was thinking you meant 35.
Oh, I think it's, yeah, so it was that, it was the 15 bayberries which were changed, the prior, so you generally note the change from the prior plan.
Okay.
So 15 bayberries were converted to beach plum. It's just a different way of
It's a
saying it.
to
but
and from, okay.
Yeah, it's to
Okay.
and from.
Confused.
Certainly the plant legend is what takes precedence in that, so I think we're okay, but. we
Okay,
can add-
yeah, all right. Yeah, if you're doing it, go ahead. And then the last thing that I had was on 22 special condition that, and I think we've talked about this before, where we require an annual survey, but we don't just explicitly talk about an endpoint to that, so I think we ought to be clear. I don't know what your understanding is of the annual survey. Does it last for 3 years until a certificate, or does it last forever?
Yeah,
It doesn't say either
Yeah,
way.
our interpretation has generally been that it goes to the end of the permit, and then if the commission sees fit to continue that beyond, that would come in the form of an ongoing condition at the time of a certificate of compliance.
Right.
So
And-
it's sort of discretionary on behalf of the
Yeah,
commission.
I think that's the most logical thing, so I think we should simply update that to say for surveys be submitted until the certificate is obtained.
I agree.
Good incentive to get a COC.
Exactly.
Exactly.
We have a couple of examples of that today.
Anyone else have anything to add? I do have a question, well, a couple things. First of all, I don't think you're going to ZBA until December. Is that correct?
I believe that's the most current.
December 21st is what I was told.
Yes, so just for clarity, the intention would be that we're going to have discussions with the neighbors, and the way we would try to permit the stairway through the Conservation Commission would be through an amendment,
Okay.
right? So,
So that's why the ZBA in December. Okay. And can you address what the current status is with the easement?
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. Bill Litchfield here on
Here.
behalf of the applicants. Attorney Senni is here as well. The easement is a separate issue. As you know, your special condition number 9, I think it is, which you ordinarily write, says that just because we have issued an order of conditions doesn't mean that you're good to go. You've got to go through lots of other things. In this case, we're going to have discussions with our neighbors, and there is an easement, as you know, along the 10-foot wide on the southerly border of this property. Similarly, when we had as a part of this proposal stairs, it was necessary under your requirements that we file for all available permits, so we did file with ZBA last month.
Correct.
However, I asked the Zoning Board of Appeals to continue that as far out as was reasonably possible to see if we can reach an accommodation. So as Seth says, whether it's through an amendment or perhaps a new NOI, but there's nothing today in regard to stairs.
Okay. And the easement will be worked on, and my only thing is that you're doing work where the easement is, so how will that?
We're doing work through or largely below the easement.
Right.
If you want me to get into that, I will, but I think
No.
that given the neighbors are supportive of the shorefront protection aspect, and given the stairs are not at issue, I think that I assume the commission's been out there.
Yes.
But the shoreline stabilization work, the fiber rolls and so forth are subsurface. To the degree that the easement is physically traversable at this point, I think the change in the slope will be beneficial to any potential pedestrian easement rather than any sort of burden on it.
Okay. How does everybody feel at this point about being able to go forward and approve the OOC versus needing to have some resolution on the easement?
So Seth, during your work, during the installation of the fiber array, obviously nobody is going to be able to walk down through there at that time. After you finish the array,
Yep.
obviously it's not ideal for people to be walking through it and over it.
I don't believe that it will be any less ideal than it is presently, because in all reality, it's currently an extremely steep scarp, which would be very hard to traverse by foot. However, the toe reinforcement, which is, as Attorney Litchfield correctly explained, is subsurface. We did leave out planting in the center of that, as noted on the plan, so there wouldn't be any barrier whatsoever. So it's really, I think you can certainly say that it will be stabilized at the toe. Most instability in coastal banks originates at the toe. So if anything, this should make a steep bank more traversable, not less. So I don't believe we're doing anything to limit or prevent access with the application that's before you.
The easement's on the southern property line?
Yeah, the plan shows it on the northerly property line. On the deeds to the four properties that are benefited by the easement and to Locust, which is burdened by it, say notwithstanding the shown location, the location shown in the plan, the easement is along the southerly line, where it has been since 1970, whatever it was year the subdivision plan was created. But again, as you know, your standard disclaimer says by issuing this permit, there's no determination made of property rights or anything else. We, as the owners of the fee in the land, have the legal right to request this notice, which we are, or this work, which we have done.
And I would note that disclaimer is already on 498 Shore Road. That's what I can give you a copy of it if you'd like, which is part of this application with permission from the owners of 498 for the same project. We're basically extending 498 onto 500. So this is your standard typical condition, which I think should give you some comfort in regard to civil easements.
And similarly, if stairs were proposed, which they're not, but even if you approved them, they couldn't be constructed without ZBA approval.
Right. Well, at that point, we would hold off issuing the order until after ZBA.
Exactly.
So are the commissioners comfortable with approving this today? Anybody have any objection?
I'm still confused. The easements on this, oops.
Hello? Hello? Okay, I think you can go, Bob.
Yeah,
Hi,
Oh, I think Bob Delvecchio.
go ahead, Bob.
you did
I
turn
can
your,
go if you want.
no, go ahead, Bob, go ahead. Maybe you can,
I was just thinking about the establishment of those plants and grasses on the steep bank associated with that easement. Would we want to temporarily, fence that off or something before, until those plants are established, before people start walking down that bank? Can that happen?
I think we've attempted to address that in a slightly different way, but to accomplish the same goal by leaving a typical 3-foot width unplanted. There will be, if someone wanted to try to attempt to traverse the bank, then they could pass through it without stepping on any plant materials. So we could protect the edges of the plantings, sort of defining that if that were helpful. But I think the likelihood of someone trying to traverse this very steep bank in its present condition is low enough that I'm not worried about the survival of these plants.
Okay. Go
Okay,
ahead, Bob Rawls.
all right, thank you.
Okay, so whenever the easement is worked out, the path will be through that area permanently.
The easement area?
Yeah,
The easement is a matter of law, and it's existed since the subdivision was created again in the late 70s or early 80s. It benefits 4 properties across the street. The original subdivision plan shows it along the northerly property line, but the deeds, insofar as I know, all of them, I don't know whether all of them show it along the southerly property line. And then there's a language that says, notwithstanding where this easement is shown, it exists along the southerly property line. So it is a 10-foot wide strip from Shore Road to Aunt Lydia's Cove. But, you know, the concern that we have is that, I don't want to get in too much into it, but we've got 110 feet or whatever it is of shorefront along Aunt Lydia's Cove, and a further area to the south on 498 Shore Road. We're interested and concerned in preserving that shoreline. The easement area, which is less than a tenth of the length of our property, is a very small aspect of it. We're not doing anything that would interfere with the easement, and again, the attorney for the easement holders, they have no opposition to this proposal, which is separate and distinct from stairs or access to the water or anything else.
so we don't know where the path will ultimately be? I think I'm missing something. What's the plan here?
Basically, we haven't determined, you know,
There is no
we need to
plan,
look
okay.
at those, and we're trying to give the time. The owners are very busy individuals, and so they'll need time to look at different alternatives. So we're just trying to provide the time. And the only real time-sensitive issue here is that, you know, we're entering the winter storm season now, and they're anxious to get their property protected, and I think that's in everyone's best interest.
So what you're trying to do right now is just stabilize.
Solely stabilized.
The process.
That's all
The
that's in
whole
front of the commission
embankment,
today.
The stairs, all the other intervention will come later.
Absolutely, and if you saw fit to approve this today, we have absolutely no permissions in place to install a stairway, so we would have to come back to you to do that. And so we expect having those further discussions at that time in the future. And I think it is appropriate as amendment, because when this project was first noticed, as you read today, it was listed in the description, so I think it's appropriate to come back through the amendment rather than a separate order of conditions.
Yes.
So,
I agree.
If it just turns out that the easement path is on the other side, on the north side, then what would you do with the unplanted southern edge?
well, I'd say, yeah, if there's no need for it to be unplanted, the next time you see this, we would be asking permission to add a few more plants to fill
To
that.
that amendment, you would add
Yes, yes.
remediation for,
Yeah.
okay.
And remember, this is beach grass. If nobody uses the path in a very short period of time, even with a 3-foot gap, it'll colonize. It's an aggressive colonizer, so, but we'd be happy to fill that in once we know where the access will be.
And not wanting to complicate things unduly, but relocating an easement, if that were to happen, involves the recording of releases and easements and a sense of mortgage holders. That's not going to happen tomorrow. It might be the day after tomorrow. That is a lengthy process, and not one on which we want to have the shorefront protection dependent.
Okay.
All right. I guess we're ready for a motion.
I haven't done this in a long time. Motion call, hey Bob, is it okay if I?
Button.
Button. We have a hand in the audience.
Yes, it is. Just please identify yourself.
Good afternoon, members of the commission. My name is Christopher Senni. I'm an attorney in Brewster, and I represent the 4 neighbors across the
Okay.
street on Aunt Lydia's Way. I'm joined today by Heather Butler, who is one of my clients. Others are tuned in and are listening. I will first confirm that we support the Coastal Bank stabilization project before you. We do not want in any way for the discussions that are now underway to interfere with getting that started as quickly as possible. We appreciate the applicant very much in withdrawing the structure part of this application and allowing time for us to consider different alternatives of perhaps approaching this in a joint venture type of way. Our property rights have a specific location for access. It is possible, as Attorney Litchfield just mentioned, to move that easement if the parties agree to. And one item that we will be discussing over the months ahead is whether we should do that so that the pedestrian easement matches up with a single point of crossing over the coastal bank, which might be advantageous from the point of view of protecting the resources. I appreciate that Bill Litchfield has been as open as he has with us. I know his clients are busy. We prepared 3 possible alternatives for different locations of what might in the future become a single access way across, and they are going to study those, and I've been assured that there's an earnest effort to work together to respect all properties that have a right to use a portion of the land for access. And we are very hopeful that 2 or 3 months from now, we can come before you either with an application to modify this order of conditions or a new notice of intent that will actually now tackle the question of how should anyone cross this coastal bank. It is a very steep bank and it needs to be done very carefully. So we appreciate the Commission's concern and care, the questions today about, well, in the meantime, during the work and after, will we still be able to have access? We appreciate that. We trust very much what Seth has said, that there will be, as they do the work, they will protect the current access point, but we look forward to working with the applicant on a potential joint venture plan, including sharing costs and sharing maintenance responsibilities going forward. And as Bill said, it's a big undertaking, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And by being as flexible as we've all been, we are giving ourselves the time to go through that process. So again, we support the current version of the notice of intent before you to approve coastal stabilization, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Do you have questions now,
Yeah,
Bob?
just as a follow-up before you depart, so one possibility would be a shared access for the neighbors and the applicant?
We have proposed 3 different drawings that show that. One leaves the proposed stair and step structure where it is, but allows my clients, the 4 property owners across the street, to cut across the hill, not at the top where they will be highly visible, but in the middle, and join that. That would require moving the easement, which requires a filed plan and deeds recorded. Another version brings it in between where the proposed structure was and the easement, and another one keeps one access point in the easement itself. And we have made proposals in terms of specifics of how we might go about doing that as a joint venture. Again, no one has committed to that cooperation, but there has been an expression of everyone involved that we're going to try to get there. And we earnestly do want to do that because you have a job which is protecting this coastal bank. I don't think 2 points of access would be optimal. I think that might be more impactful to the resources. So it seems that every party involved has a benefit to trying to work together. But in direct answer to your question, yes, what we have put on the table is possibly altering both the easement and the location of the structure.
Okay, obviously, we would look upon that with more favor because
Yes.
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 If you can combine, however much you can combine, that would be better, obviously.
That's the goal.
Right, okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions at this point? All right. Now I think we're ready for a motion, please.
Make a motion that we approve the order conditions for 498 and 500 Shore Road as discussed today.
Gordon, second.
Okay. Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Cheryl? Aye. Bob?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I say aye. It's approved. Thank you. All right, Paul, we're ready for the next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next on the agenda is a request for an extension to an order of conditions. The address is 14 Periwinkle Lane. The applicant is Alan Hankowski, map 4C, parcel L7. The DEP SE number is 103344. The project is proposed vinyl sheeting to enhance existing gabions. I did, at the request of the chair, call the owner this morning. The reason for the extension is he's been ill and his contractor did not show up, so he's hired another contractor, and I explained to him we can only grant an extension for a year. So if the commission has no objection, it seems like the reasons would be valid, and I would recommend granting the extension for 1 year.
Thank you, Paul. And just for information, the current order expires September 17th, 2023. So it would be an extension until September 17th, 2024. Any questions or anything from commissioners?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Crystal.
Hi, Crystal.
Yeah,
So
that's not right.
the order is extended till December 29th of 2023 because of the COVID extension.
Okay, thank you.
I got confused this morning and thought that it was already expired, but it's not.
Okay, thank you, that's good.
Well, that's good, because you can't extend an expired order.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I was wondering, so, okay.
Just, Paul, is the reason has to do with vegetation or with, or?
The
It's
construction,
actually, it's a vegetation. I think the sheet pilings were done, yeah, they were, the agenda said, that, I read what the agenda had on it, but there's additional work that needs to be done that hasn't been closed out, and some of it's vegetation. I think there might be a stair case involved as well. But his contractor never showed up, and he got long-term COVID, and he was okay with me mentioning that. So he just hasn't been able to get going until now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
all right. I think we're ready for a motion.
Make a motion that.
Push it.
I'd like to make a motion that we, that the request to extend for 1 year the order for 14 Periwinkle Lane be approved.
Gordon, second.
All right, Elise,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Mary? Aye. And I say aye, it's approved. Thank you. All right, Paul, we're ready for the next.
Okay, Madam Chair, next on the agenda is a request for a determination of applicability. The project location is 86 Purcell Drive, Town of Chatham / Mass Division of Marine Fisheries, map 10J, parcel 12-11, R-23-12. The project is for an anadromous fish passage restoration project. I believe the proponents from Mass Division of Marine Fisheries are here, along with Ted Keon,
Yes,
to speak to it.
they are. Thank you. All right.
Good afternoon, Ted Keon, Coastal Resource Director. I'll be very brief to pass it right over to Brad. This is just a follow-up of our meeting a few weeks ago where we introduced both an operation and maintenance plan for the herring run, and then more specifically, some repairs to existing features within the run that frankly, in their current condition, are non-functional. So Brad has prepared the narrative and the description of the work proposed, so I will let him take over.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Brad Chase with the Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries. I work as the diatomaous fish project leader for the Commonwealth. We are joined here today by two members of the Cape Cod Conservation District, Rick DiGiavilio and Carissa Collins. They're working on watershed-wide improvements for sea run fish passage in this watershed, including the Rada Cove culvert replacement, which is in the works now. So they're here today for support as well to answer any questions on the broader interest, if you have any. So at the last meeting, you received a draft project narrative. We refined that narrative, and that was sent to you. What I thought I'd do is go over diagram of figure number 3, if you like. I'm not sure if it can be put up on the screen or not for everybody, but either way, it's a pretty simple diagram. And it shows Stillwater Pond.
We're going to try.
Okay,
We'll try.
so everyone can see my artwork.
Yeah. It's figure 3.
Yes.
It should be within the RDA.
It is.
Yeah.
So essentially, there's a fishway that allows water to come in out of Stillwater Pond. Our agency built that fishway in 2010, and there are 3 weirs downstream of the fishway that have become degraded, and the channel has become filled in or shoaled with sand coming out of the pond. And so this project proposes to repair those 3 weirs, as well as remove 1 to 2 cubic yards of sand from the channel, which is causing low flow that impedes fish passage under certain flow conditions. So I'll just keep describing things because it's
Good.
quite a simple graphic. If it comes up, all the better. I'll be embarrassed if it comes up because it's a very simple diagram. So the first weir downstream of the fishway, we don't propose to change the concrete. We just want to fix erosion on either side of that weir by using fiber rolls. So we would cut in place 12-inch diameter fiber rolls, backfill those fiber rolls, then plant over that with loam and a Cape Cod seed mix. The next weir downstream has substantial erosion, so we're proposing to actually extend the concrete with a new concrete form on either side that ties into the weir with rebar and then firms up that weir, and then put fiber rolls on both sides of the weir, and again put loam and grass seed mix on top of that. The third weir, it's like the first weir. It's got erosion and undercutting, but we think we can fix it with fiber rolls, so we're not proposing any concrete changes. And in each case, we're going to hand dig sand between the weirs and use that as part of the backfill to try to extend the water depth. So very simple. Okay,
There you go. You did it.
there it is. Yep. And I'd like to say that an engineer produced it, but no, it was just me. It's pretty crude and simple, but you can see the 3 weirs. The fiber roll locations are in yellow. The distances are to scale, everything else is not to scale. And there's the fishway, as well as the weirs number 1, 2, and 3. Where you can see that the border around weir 2, that's where we're going to extend the concrete. And that will be we're going to pour concrete by hand, mixing in a wheelbarrow, and it'll be done in a day. Excavation 1 day, pouring the next, and then breaking down the form the 3rd day. So really a 3-day project overall.
The only thing that I wanted to add, just for clarity, for the commission's sake, the weir's purpose is to channel the water and try to build up some head, between the weir systems as they become detached from the bank through just normal erosion processes. The channel just kind of goes all around. It doesn't get channelized for the small opening between the weir sides, if you will. So as they really, aren't functioning very well. And then the whole goal is to reestablish the original intent.
Excellent point, Ted. They're not serving to backwater, which is essential for water depth for fish passage. So we considered rebuilding them, but I don't think it's necessary, and that would be much more disruptive. We would have to have an excavator on site, and so we're proposing to do this hand rehabilitation in 3 days, if approved, later in October.
And just for, reference, the fishway that's, directly adjacent to Stillwater, that Brad referenced was redone in 2010. That was an impressive project in the sense of he and his 2 guys did all that right on site. I was very impressed at the quality of work and how well they, did within the confines. And when they were left, it looked like, it had been there for a long time. So I have no question about the capability of their crew. They do this all over the state.
Any questions or comments, anybody? Commissioners?
Sounds like a good project to me.
Yeah, and we did, of course, hear this previously.
And my only other, just because I'm sitting in front of the mic, this is in anticipation of either, as Brad referenced, further improvements downstream.
Okay.
We really are looking toward fixing the culvert under Route 28, which is not in good shape at all. So this is another way to sort of make this run, better where it's already functioning, and hope that this new culvert ultimately in the next couple of years or so really makes this run, return to its, old glory, so to speak. We actually had a very good year this year.
Good.
So we're pleased that we are seeing, fairly good numbers, and we just want to keep that going.
Good. Bob, you have your hand up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. When the areas are seeded with the Cape Cod mix, will those be mulched? I mean, will you mulch over the seed to prevent more erosion, if we get a heavy rain?
We did not intend to use mulch. Many cases,
No, but something like, something like straw or something like that. I'm just thinking if you spread seed, it's just gonna wash it, especially if we get a heavy rain.
yeah, we'll pack the soil and we can seed it, and then we can use straw on top. Mulch can be messy, and I'd rather not have the mulch get into the channel. So we can take precautions to pack it and put straw on top. And we can visit it,
Okay.
as much as we need to make sure it takes.
Sure. And there's a lot of English ivy and other, ground covers. And that's not providing enough erosion control as it is right now, correct?
That's true for the English ivy, yes.
Okay, so are you going to remove some of that English ivy before you seed?
We're not proposing to move the English ivy other than the footprint where the fiber roll is going to go. The proposal does include an option to put a few shrubs around the work to try to improve erosion control. It's almost an optional item that I think, depending on funding, it puts it to the property owner as well as the town of Chatham. If they were to choose to add a few shrubs right around the disturbance, that would help reduce erosion in the area. So if the commission saw, that would agreeable to that, we could consider adding a few shrubs pending funding.
And if you did that, you would probably have to remove some English ivy, otherwise the ivy would just overrun those plants, correct?
Yes, I'd have to look at it specifically, but if, the commission wants us to do some of that, we could. I hadn't thought of working too far from the footprint of the disturbance around the weirs, but we could certainly, around the weirs, extending into the bank on the far side, not on the grass side, we could do some work there to try to improve that erosion. And I think if the commission wanted a few native plantings, that would be appropriate.
And if I may, our O&M plan, as you may recall, had, as it's an objective, frankly, to do hand pruning and so forth on an annual maintenance because it's important. I don't want to get into a full invasive removal project along here because that's a really big job because there's a lot of it. But doing some hand pruning when we're doing the normal maintenance around these weirs to try to stabilize that area, that's fine. That's no big deal.
Okay.
Right. And if you did choose some natives, there would be shade-tolerant natives because there's a lot of heavy shade in that area.
I agree, and I think we would defer to the wishes of the commission as to what species they wanted planting, and maybe I'd have to defer to Ted to see what his budget would allow.
I'm scraping together nickels already, so we'll see. I don't expect, the few shrubs with, his crew planting them to be a big deal, but I think we can probably find sufficient funding.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Paul could probably consult with you on that as well. So thank you.
All right. Anything else from commissioners? Anyone else have questions, comments? All right, I guess we're ready for a motion.
I'd like to move that the Fish Passage project at 86 Purcell Drive be approved with a negative determination for the RDA. And I successfully avoided saying the word diadromous.
Gordon, second.
All right, Elise.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
And Mary.
Aye.
And Paul, in that, can you add that a few shrubs will be placed and that some of the ivy around the weirs will be removed and the area will be hand pruned annually?
Yes, we could do that. I can work with Ted on that. We have some dimes we can use,
Okay,
not nickels.
thank you. Maybe these three could be part of the mitigation the town owes for so many other projects. Maybe,
Sure.
yeah, I don't know. Just thought. All right, so, and I said aye, whoops, sorry. You're approved.
Thank you. If I can ask a question to the
Sure.
chair on the stream maintenance plan that we presented before the commission last time we visited. I just want to say that whenever you want to return to that, I'd be happy to discuss it. From our end, it's a near final draft. And so
Okay.
I didn't expect to talk about it today. It wasn't on the agenda. But if you would like me to come back or participate remotely, I'd be happy to try to find time to finalize that stream maintenance plan for this same watershed.
Right. It was our recollection that the last meeting, there were just some thoughts of adding a few words. I think, Bob, you were, one of the ones that wanted to maybe wordsmith a few minor sections. So I don't think there's a lot of changes, but, we're not quite sure where we want to leave that or where we have left that.
That sounds like something I would have said, but I don't specifically remember what I said, so I'm glad you took note of it.
I think what we'll do is Janet will be back, I think she'd be back even tomorrow. So I'll mention it to her, and then we'll see where we go with that.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next on the agenda, we are now into notice of intent applications. The first one is 513 Stage Harbor Road, John Evans and Elaine Demopoulos, map 14A, parcel 11-92, DEP SC 103646. The work is proposed building modifications and addition and associated site improvements.
All right. Is there anybody here for 513 Stage Harbor? Oh, Teresa is, great. Okay, Teresa, go ahead.
I'll actually let Sean, I think Sean just signed in.
Yes, he did.
He's here, he can introduce, and then I will present.
Okay.
Yes. Yep, for the record, Sean Riley, Coastal Engineering, representing the applicant. The last time we were here, Teresa had discussed coming up with a mitigation planting plan, land management plan. She's worked extensively with the applicant. The mitigation area has actually expanded significantly, but I'll let Teresa talk more about that. It gives us a better cutoff point for the invasives. I think I think we answered all the questions around the site improvements around the house. But if you have any additional questions, I'll be glad to answer that. But I think the largest portion of this was questions about what Teresa was proposing for her land management. So I'll just turn it over to her from here.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Good afternoon, everyone. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design here on behalf of the property owners. So as we discussed at the previous hearing, we were putting together a land management plan for invasive species management and native plant restoration. In the plan that we put together, totals just over 5,300 square feet of invasive species management. As Sean pointed out, we did expand it beyond what was shown for management area on Sean's original plan that was discussed at the last hearing. And we did that because we found an opportunity to actually protect a couple of existing oaks that are located directly southeast of the Keystone Drive. That are completely covered in bittersweet. And we note on our plan, we're showing the approximate location of these trees. There's an oak covered in bittersweet. We will have to do some minor pruning just for the health of the oak. And then just to the west of that, there's an oak that's in very good condition that is not covered with bittersweet. So in between that area, the invasive vegetation really thins out. So we have an opportunity to protect those trees that are covered with mainly bittersweet vine right now in that area that's located to the south of the Keystone Drive, as well as to manage the invasive vegetation on the slope and on the coastal bank, plant that out, slow that water down as it's heading down towards Bridge Street. So the site itself is, it's the area, the project area, I should say, the site is significantly covered with invasive vegetation, but the project area is really about 70% of the total vegetation is invasive, and in the ground cover and shrub layer, it's 90% or greater invasive in the areas that we're showing in green. The invasive vegetation consists mainly of bittersweet, multiflora rose, sycamore, maple, shrub and vine, honeysuckle, border privet, and porcelain berry. There are 3 existing Leland cypress trees that are in really poor shape that we're proposing to remove, and there is 1 eastern red cedar on the slope that is just completely degraded by bittersweet vine that would be removed as part of our invasive species management. Once we uncover it, there'll be very little to or no life left in that tree. And it would just be likely to fall and uproot the slope as it blew over and degraded. So we'd rather take that down now and get that area planted out. Once we remove the invasive vegetation, as always, we will seed the sloped areas. We've got a seed mix specification specifically made for steep slopes, consisting of deep-rooted native grasses, wildflowers. And then the entire area is going to be planted out with trees, understory trees, mainly serviceberry, and shrubs for just over 200 native trees and shrubs to be planted on the slopes. So I think we're going to see a significant improvement in the condition of the slope. We are showing an area with a 4-foot wide access path to Bridge Street. That was something that was included on the plan by Pohemus. That area, the goal in putting the pathway in that area is that is the least steep part of this slope. As we get further to the west of that path area, the slope gets quite steep, as you can see from the topo lines on this plan. And we really want to keep that steep area that leads right down to Bridge Street heavily planted with native vegetation. I think that covers everything. I do want to point out that the only tree that will be removed will be that 1 eastern red cedar that's completely degraded with the vines, and then those 3 Leland cypress that are up at the top of the slope that are shown with that orange dot. They're just in really poor condition, and I think will benefit to come out and help us reestablish vegetation in that area. All of the oak trees will be protected. There are some cherries that are also located on the bank. They've definitely been degraded by the invasive vegetation, but we think we can work around them. We may just have to do some regenerative pruning. The property owners, it's very important to the property owners to maintain the screening from Bridge Street up to the house. So they're wanting us to plant this out quite thickly, which is what we're showing here. So happy to answer any questions about the proposed restoration mitigation. It's a significant amount of work for a small increase in structure, but I think it will have a great impact and hopefully will spread to other areas of the property in the future.
Thank you. All right, I'll open it to the commissioners if anybody has any comments, questions. Go ahead.
Yes, Teresa, I agree that this is a an awful lot of ecological work for the small amount of coverage increase. I have my notes that we expect to see more projects, another project later involving more restoration. Is that what I remember correctly?
Well, we discussed the fact that pretty much the entire property the perimeter of the entire property is surrounded by invasive vegetation, and the property owners are just trying to bite off what they can handle one bit at a time. So we have not talked specifically about coming back immediately with any other restoration, but the idea is that they're going to handle this, and then I think they'll find that the results are going to provide some, for them, really increased aesthetic value, as well as obviously increased improvement in protection of resource area, wildlife habitat, et cetera. But we don't have anything specific in the works at this time. It's just something we sort of talked about as a possibility going forward.
Okay. The only reason I mention is that my eyes keep getting drawn to the grass in the Indian Sea and beyond on the other side of the property, and I'm hoping that if another project comes forward, we could make some progress there. I mean, I can make the case that, you know, it would be better just to do that than some of the work that you're proposing, but I'll remain hopeful that something else comes along that addresses that.
Yeah, and we are removing some lawn area and planting that area out, and we're basically doing that in a way that we're going to be using the existing mowed lawn area to keep the invasive vegetation that's surrounding this restored area at bay and keep it from coming back in. So again, it's almost that mowed path firewall idea to keep this area from becoming reinfested, and then hopefully in the future we'll be working our way around the property.
Anyone else? Bob, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you for noticing, Karen. I guess 3 questions. Teresa, there is a lot of, I mentioned this the last time, there are some shade trees there shading that area. Are these plants shade tolerant, especially the ones at the top of the slope?
Oh, you're muted.
I'm muted, sorry, thank you. They are. So in the green circles, we're showing where we located some large, mainly oak trees. I think there's some dogwood as well. But the larger circles are the oak trees. They're very large canopy trees, canopy oaks. You know, they are the one on the east is completely covered in invasive vines. There's another tree in there as well that's got invasive vine cover. The one that's to the west has no bittersweet in it, so it's in good shape, and that's why we kind of cut that line for invasive species management where we did. And I can share a photo if that helps. But yes, the plants are all shade tolerant. The bank itself, because it's south-facing, the slope gets quite a bit of sun. We've been down there, and it's quite sunny, Bridge Street looking up, but the plants at the top of the slope are all shade tolerant. And the grasses, again, where this particular mix is a taller grass mix. It's a deep-rooted grass mix, so we're proposing Indian grass, big blue stem, little blue stem switchgrass, because they're very deep-rooted, and this is really a very steeply sloping area. But they'll all tolerate shade, but the slopes themselves get a significant amount of sun.
Okay, terrific. And the path, it's pretty steep, if I remember correctly. Would you be providing any stepping stones or timbers on that path?
I'm going to defer to Sean on that. We weren't asked to provide a stair detail, but I'll let Sean.
Yeah, that's actually that's a good point. This is actually as Teresa pointed out, one of the flattest portion of that slope, and the slope is about a 5-to-1, so it's really only like a 20% slope coming up there. So I wouldn't see any need for any timbers or built-in stair for this area.
Okay. All right. And was there a landscape plan for the foundation?
Yes, that was the previous plan that was submitted, and that would be accepted for the plantings that they proposed, which were 100% natives within the 0 to 50, and then we were changing it to I believe it was a 75%. in the 50 to 100,
Right.
per your comments. So we'll update that plan and submit that for the record before the, assuming the order of conditions can be issued.
Okay, so there isn't any specific landscape planting plan, it's just, you're just calling out that it's gonna be 100% and 75%.
That's correct. They are relatively small areas around the house.
Okay. Okay, okay, that's all I had, thank you.
All right, anybody else?
I have one more.
Go ahead, Bob.
As I look at this plan, Teresa, it seems like it could benefit from demarcation. Have you considered that, thought about that?
I did not discuss that with the clients. Are you thinking like a low? It's very woody, so everything, we're putting a lot of shrub vegetation in. So it's, I think, I understand entirely when we've got lawn and it's abutting meadow directly, that having that area marked or buffered, like with a bumper, like a low single rail fence, really makes sense. There's really very little chance of lawnmowers moving into this area. A, it's sloping, and B, we're planting woody vegetation throughout the entire area, so, and taller woody vegetation. So it's not like a low shrub that might accidentally be hit by a lawnmower. It's going to prevent anybody from bumping into this area.
Okay, yeah, I see your point. All right, thanks.
All right, so I think what we would still need, as you said, Seth, is a new Polhemus plan with the foundation plantings. But otherwise.
Yeah, we can provide that this week. It's really just updating one note.
Okay.
That's on that plan that we had specified 50%, and it's this note here that would be changed to just say 75%. So it's really just that minor modification, and we'd submit that for the record.
But we need to know what plantings are going there.
We can provide that. Typically, it's just been a note in the conditions that 100% natives be planted within the 0 to 50 and 75% within the 50 to 100. So if that's acceptable.
All right, I think it's good. It's good these days, Sean, to have, at the very least, a plant list.
Yes.
Because not everyone agrees on what a particular plant, whether a particular plant is native or not. We're looking, in fact, while we're talking about it, when you update the plan, could you put the word straight in there in front of native? Because a lot of people try to plant cultivars, nativars, et cetera, which we're trying to move away from.
We have the landscape architect, Rob Calderero, on the line, so he could comment if he has any comments on what those plantings would be.
All right, well, we should have the numbers as well. You know, species, numbers is usually, can you still get that by this week?
Rob?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You're
Faintly.
A little vaguely, yeah.
Yes, I can pull together a list with quantities and sizes for you.
Okay.
And species.
Yeah, and the species.
Yep.
Okay, then I think unless there are further questions, we probably can go to an order. We already have 3 for the next meeting. So this will be our 4th if it went to the next meeting.
The next meeting is October 25th.
Yes, it
5th.
is. We have 3 orders, 486 Shore, 70 Strong Island, and 171 Morris Island. And then this would be our 4th. I mean, there is 2 weeks before the meeting.
Yeah, I think we've done twice as many as that.
I know. I just am warning because we've been a little bit lighter recently.
We're getting used to a light load, yeah.
Yeah, we are, so I'm warning you.
So the 25th, okay for you folks?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion that we move to an order of conditions for 513 Stage Harbor Road on October, whatever it is that I said, which is the
25th.
25th.
Gordon, second.
All right, Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, we will have an order on the 25th. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, Paul?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last notice of intent on the agenda is 162 Shore Road, Tom and Michelle Jennings, map 16D, parcel 15-29. Crystal, I'm not sure if the SE number's been issued. It just says SE 1036. The project
It
is
has,
removed.
but I don't have it.
Okay, so we do have it. All right, so the commission can act then. Removal of an existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling located outside the outer aura, relocation of an existing accessory building, construction of an in-ground swimming pool and hardscaping, abandonment of an existing septic system and installation of an IA system, and restoration of an existing lawn with native plant species. That's the project.
All right.
Hi, thank you.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Stephanie Sequin with Ryder and Wilcox. I'm representing Tom and Michelle Jennings, who are the owner of the property at 162 Shore Road. I have with me today Matthew Lautenberger from Wilkinson Ecological Design and Joe Waller from Stephen Stimson Landscape Architect. We also have representatives from Hutker Architects in the office and in the audience. And last but not least, Attorney Litchfield is here. So this is a 1.9 acre piece of property located on the east side of Shore Road. On the far side of the property, there is a part of that 1.9 acres consists of dune and beach abutting Chatham Harbor. That area of dune and beach is also within land subject to coastal storm flowage. It's designated as a or actually two different velocity zones, one being elevation 15 and one being elevation 22. We located the V-zone boundary based on GPS location, and the topography at the velocity zone boundary is between 4:1 and 10:1, so per DEP policy, that velocity zone boundary is the top of a coastal bank. There is a stone revetment on a portion of the coastal bank. Some of you may remember there was an order of conditions issued in 2022 for that allowed alteration, I think basically vertical expansion of that stone revetment. And the 50 and 100-foot buffers are shown from the top of the coastal bank. Currently, there's an existing dwelling. It's a 5-bedroom, 1.5-story structure. There's a detached garage and also another detached building that's referred to as a studio. Most of you would recognize it as the building that looks like a windmill. It has the windmill vanes on it. According to assessor's records, the studio dates back to the 1700s. It wasn't necessarily in this location in the 1700s, but it is obviously an historic structure. The original, the salt box portion of the main dwelling, again, according to assessor's records, was built in 1820, not on this property, but at some point was relocated here. The entire studio is located within the 50-foot buffer. It's approximately 10 feet from the top of the coastal bank. There's some hardscaping within the 50-foot buffer. The hardscaping, there's a shell driveway, brick patios, stone retaining walls and walkways. Some of that hardscaping is in the 50-foot buffer. The existing dwelling is approximately 51 feet from the top of the bank. And the existing septic system is a Title V system that was installed in 2006 and approved for 5 bedrooms. What's being proposed with this project is to remove the existing dwelling and garage and construct a new dwelling and garage in a new footprint. we're proposing to relocate the studio or the windmill building, moving it completely outside of the 50-foot buffer. As it's positioned, it's approximately, the proposed building studio is 51 feet from the top of the coastal bank. The historic salt box portion of the existing dwelling will be preserved, but it will be moved closer to Shore Road, well outside of the 100-foot buffer, and that will be converted to a garage with living space above. The new proposed building, the actual building is just outside of the 100-foot buffer. There is a little bit of the proposed deck that does extend into the 100-foot buffer. A new pervious driveway is located between the proposed dwelling and the proposed relocated salt box, well outside of jurisdiction. We're also proposing an in-ground pool that will be located adjacent to the main house and the studio. The pool itself is a little over 50 feet from the top of the bank. Small portion of the patio surrounding the pool, along with some steps and retaining walls, are located within the 50-foot buffer. And lastly, the existing sewage disposal system will be removed in a new septic system, which will include IA technology for nitrogen reduction, will be installed. And all of those proposed components are outside of the 100-foot buffer. I provided you with a comparison of the existing and proposed site coverage within the 0 to 50 and 50 to 100-foot buffers. Within the 0 to 50, we are eliminating the existing building that's within the 0 to 50, reducing some of the hardscape, and for a total 512 square foot reduction in the 0 to 50-foot buffer. In the 50 to 100-foot buffer, we are reducing the square footage of building and within the 50 to 100, but there is some an increase in hardscaping. So the net result is an increase of 1,700 square feet of coverage within the 50 to 100. So between the 512 square foot reduction in the 0 to 50 and the 1,700 square foot increase in the 50 to 100, we have a net increase of 1,188 square feet in the 50 to 100-foot buffer. And as mitigation for that 1,188 square feet of coverage, Wilkinson has prepared a restoration plan that shows approximately 1,200 square feet of existing lawn to be restored with native plants. In addition to that, the landscaping plan that Stimson prepared does include native plants in their proposed landscaping within the buffer. I've provided our typical construction notes on the site plan, along with the construction protocol that was submitted with the notice of intent. There will be a fabric silt fence installed along the limit of work prior to construction. That will remain until all the disturbed areas are revegetated. A dumpster will be placed in the driveway to contain any construction or demolition debris. All the demolition material and any excess excavated material will be removed from the site upon completion of construction. Gutters and downspouts connected to dry wells will be used to contain roof runoff. The disturbed areas will be restored in accordance with the approved restoration plan and landscaping plan once the work is complete. So I think that covers everything that's being proposed here. We do require, this will require approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Historic District. Those applications have not been filed yet. And it also will require a variance from the Board of Health from the nutrient management regulations and to approve the IA system. And so we don't have that scheduled either. That's, I think, all I have to say. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or I can turn it over to Matthew to explain the restoration plan.
Why don't we hear everything and then we can ask our questions, I think.
Okay.
Hi, Matthew Lautenberger from Wilkinson Ecological here. Just a couple quick comments about the restoration plan. We're really excited to be working on this project because for us it's very much a continuation of the mitigation we did for the revetment last year. And during that work, we were able to do a bunch of invasive species removal and then start building a native plant community along the bank there. And by being able to go in, and you'll see that there's sort of a strip of bayberries which are coming up along the northern property line there. That'll give us a chance to go in and take out a huge chunk of privet that's there currently, which is the last remaining invasives within jurisdiction on that site. Other than that, the plants that we've chosen are very much a continuation of what we had on the revetment project. But I'd be happy to answer any other questions about that plan that you might have.
Okay. Anybody else that needs to speak?
Joe Waller from Stephen Stimson.
Landscape improvements.
That would be great. Thank you.
Could I ask the technology group to forward to a diagram? I think it's an additional page perhaps within this document.
What do you want the one with your maybe it's that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no.
Thank you. We provided a couple additional documents to try to explain what we're trying to do in the landscape.
Are you looking for the one with the planting listing and everything?
There
The only
were,
one that was
oh, I understood that we had,
conservation was the,
okay, that's fine.
one that
The
was
landscape plan that you had up
Yeah,
previously is fine. Sorry for that.
This plan.
Yeah. Yeah, to build on what Stephanie and Matt were talking about, you could see here the relocated structures, the proposed new structures within 0 to 50. If you pan to the right, we can focus on that area. Within the 0 to 50, we're proposing to build upon Wilkinson's mitigation planting with an entirely native palette of planting. We do have a lawn zone within that 0 to 50 area here shown in the free-form middle zone there. And then as we move to the 50 to 100-foot zone surrounding the pool, we're proposing a palette that's largely native, 75% native species, in addition to some non-native approved plants within that zone. And then for the majority of the site, our plant palette is largely native, transitioning up into an adapted plant community in the spirit of Chatham and Shore Road.
Yes. Most of it out of our jurisdiction.
Out of your jurisdiction, exactly. Yep.
Okay. Does anybody want to start? How about Bob Delvecchio? Do you have questions, comments?
I do, Karen.
Great. Go ahead.
Let's see, number one, the mitigation work or the invasive removal work that was done previously on the coastal bank, there's some Japanese knotweed that's starting to invade again on the northern side. Did you notice that?
I did.
Hi, yeah, I can speak to the knotweed. That's part of the invasives management plan that we put into effect. We just started the first season of it this summer. We have been treating that knotweed, and it is expected to be coming back for a couple more years, but we are fully committed, the client's fully committed to continuing to eradicate it on the property.
Okay. And there's also, on the stockade fence on the northern property line, is that stockade fence going to remain? Is that part of this property or the other property adjacent to this one?
It is on this property.
Oh,
So,
the
Okay, well,
fence,
that
I
will-
believe, was included as part of the original mitigation. I believe its purpose was just to, am I thinking of a different fence?
Well, we don't usually
On the northern property line, there's a stockade fence, which is covered with English ivy.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I was thinking about the view fencing we had put up near the, yeah.
So is that going to be removed, or is it going to remain, or?
well, there's one fence. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry, that's the proposed pool fence. Let me look at the existing. I don't know what the plan is for the stockade fence on the north.
Okay, so the English ivy at a minimum will be removed, correct?
I think it could be.
Okay. Okay, as far as the structure goes, the pool patio and the pool fence are, and also that wall are all in the no disturb zone. Can I ask why you extended those areas, the patio, the fencing, and the wall and the NDZ?
Well, we have pulled everything back from what's existing, taking existing structure entirely out, existing building entirely outside of the 0 to 50. And we have reduced the amount of hardscaping that's within the 0 to 50. There is a somewhat of a limit as to how far landward this could all be pushed back, mostly because of the,
Just
when
a
you're on
sec.
Shore Road, the,
Could someone's got to mute, please, because we're getting a feedback. Bob, is possibly you?
I can mute temporarily.
Yeah,
think, Bob,
Bob, it's you.
You just
Okay.
turn your speaker off, I think.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, sorry.
okay, so there's a fairly steep slope from Shore Road down to the developed area of the property. And in order to get the driveway positioned between the two new buildings, as I said, there's only so far you can go toward Shore Road before that driveway becomes too steep and unmanageable as far as, you know, navigating to get into the new developed area.
Okay, but I think, I mean, usually we don't see any pool fencing in, especially the pool fencing in the NDZ, which would inhibit wildlife movement. And I think that patio could be cut back some, so it's not entirely, you know, a part of it is in the NDZ. I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay. Just as an aside, I agree with Bob. I would like to see, I mean, there's a lot of terrace around this pool, and I think that we have an opportunity. Yes, you are moving a structure outside of the NDZ, but we don't like to see structures in the NDZ. So that's a bonus, but you're putting something else in that and you have a lot of terrace. You know, I'm sure you know, I've pushed back about this on other projects, and you know, I'm going to push back on this one as well. Just in support of what Bob said. Anybody else?
I have a question. At the top of the former project, the white area that's to the far right, what is it sod that's going in there for grass, or?
Which?
To the far right of the project, come above the revetment, and then there's a scored area, and then there's a white band that runs from, it says, building setback line. And it's just all white. Is that sod?
That's proposed to be lawn.
It's
Yeah,
lawn.
Lawn turf, yep.
And so then the next level up is also lawn in a different form?
With the
then-
crosshatch zone is native planting,
Okay.
and then the crosshatch going in the opposite direction on the building side of that north-south wall is also proposed to be native vegetation.
So is it a grass that you're putting for as far as native vegetation?
Yeah,
It's a
meadow,
grass,
a native meadow mix, correct.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a picture of what this hillside's gonna look like and how much is going in there.
I'm
And
sorry.
when you do your stone terrace, I'm assuming it's gonna be permeable? It's not cement or anything that you're putting in, like it's gonna all,
It's a proposed stone terrace. It will be dry laid. We're still determining what the sub-base material for it
Right.
would be.
it just seems like there's a lot of disturbance.
You done?
Yeah, oh, yes,
Go
thank you.
ahead, Bob.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, would you mind walking over there and pointing at the lawn parts? Because I
Sure,
didn't
yeah.
get that at all.
Yeah, I can do that.
This,
Bob.
Is there a pointer?
this.
Use my-
Yeah, I just want to do it.
Yeah, so everything to this side of this free-form line here is the mitigation planting that Wilkinson was presenting.
Can you just do me a favor?
Yep.
As you're talking, I'm gonna turn this mic on so they
Oh,
can hear
yeah.
you on the TV.
So
Yeah.
funny.
See how close it gets to me. This will be the challenge.
You can pull it.
You can carry it, too.
You can pull it.
Have enough lead?
I don't know.
It might.
We'll find out. We'll find out.
Otherwise, we'll be out.
No. We're getting told no.
No. Okay.
No. We got a big no-no.
I'll try to talk loudly enough, hopefully that'll get picked up on another speaker. Mitigation is this planting to the right-hand side of that line. This free-formed line here, this free-formed line here represent the width and length of the lawn, so that zone that you referred to as being white, it's actually got a dot hatch on it in the plan, it's proposed to be lawn. And then this cross-hatch zone along the base of the wall is proposed to be native herbaceous vegetation, perennial vegetation.
And so that white, it doesn't show, oh, sorry, that doesn't show up as dots, but anyway, it says turf sod.
Correct.
Drought tolerant, okay, I just wanted, yeah.
That would be in the no disturb zone, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's within 0 to 50, correct?
Yeah. Well, we can't be having that,
No.
just to put it bluntly. We never have allowed any form of lawn to be established in the no disturb zone. So, just to make it clear.
Even when there's existing lawn.
Yeah, we got it. This is essentially we're restarting this property here for the most part. So we have an opportunity to make it the way it should have been all along. And we certainly can't be left with turf lawn in the NDZ. Just can't have it. And so those two other crosshatches there, would you describe those again? Because I'm not seeing labels here that make it clear.
There is a legend in the bottom.
Okay, let me scroll down to that,
Yeah,
wherever it is.
I think it's in the bottom left-hand corner.
Other side, here we go, I'm looking for it. Here we go.
There you go. And at the very bottom is the lawn
Yeah, so
description.
the coastal metal mix is the
Going.
one adjacent to the lawn.
Oh, those, okay.
There's a mix, I think it's at the top of this if you pan down.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. this is the woody plant material. There's another legend that is just off the screen here that refers to those areas within the no disturb zone.
Okay.
These.
Yeah.
So coastal meadow mix is the herbaceous perennial mix at the base of the wall, and then cultivated coastal meadow mix is the one on the uphill side of that wall.
Yeah. This is a very complex project. I'm just wondering whether or not we should, let me back up. You've got at least 3 other approvals to get.
And none have been filed?
They have not been filed.
All right. Mr. Litchfield is going to leap into action here. So.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, through you to Mr. Rawls. We recognize, of course, that your protocols say that, or the regulations say that all other permits should be applied
Yes.
for. There are occasions with larger projects where it doesn't make sense, because if you said, no, we want you to move the windmill back down toward the water, I don't expect you're going to do that. But if you did, we'd have to file completely new plans. So recognizing that we have Board of Health, Historic, Zoning Board of Appeals, as well as you, given that you take the sort of global look down at the project, we wanted to get your reaction to the siting. So the earliest we would be in front of November 18th, the earliest in which we'd be in front of Historic would be on November 18. Zoning would be sometime in December. So we understand that this is, as was said, a major project. It's also an important one. And we also recognize from, a sort of a public point of view, this is a highly visible location. And we feel good about the fact that for the first time in a number of years, the public will be able to clearly see the windmill, which is being moved back toward Shore Road, and the salt box, which has been more or less invisible in recent years behind a privet hedge, is now going to be the most visible aspect of the property. That's going to be clearly visible from Shore Road where it hasn't been at a time. Those issues are, of course, not specifically within your purview, but we and the homeowners are looking at it as a larger project. So that's why we wanted to come to you first. If there are adjustments, looking at the stockade fence, I frankly am not sure anybody gave that fence much thought. We know now that the English ivy is coming down. Yes. There are things that will be done, but we wanted to get your reaction before we did the filing with the other boards.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, so I think I'm going to take my commentary up a few thousand feet. I'm not going to really dig into too many more details. Other than to say, I'm wondering whether or not we should think about a site visit for this project. There's a lot going on here.
We could, yeah.
I echo previous comments about how it appears to me that the terrace or the patio, the pool surround it looks larger than it would need to be in this protected area, in the resource area. So I echo the opinion that it's too much and that should be reduced.
Yes.
Just some random questions. The thing between the two chevron hatches, what is that?
That's a retaining wall.
That's the retaining wall that will be retained?
No.
It's a new retaining wall, because there was something there.
There is.
More or less.
There is a retaining wall now.
And it's basically in the same footprint of the existing?
I don't think so.
No, it's moved?
If you go to the proposed site plan,
Moved back.
the Ryder and Wilcox proposed site plan,
Well, here's okay. There are many documents to scroll through here. I'll see if I can find it. Maybe that one?
I think so.
that one, yes. So if you zoom in, you can see the proposed retaining wall, and then a little bit to the east and north in two dashed lines, that's the existing retaining wall. And the existing patio is just to the west of the existing retaining wall.
Okay, got it. All right.
Not obvious.
Right, okay. So It was mentioned a while ago, I believe you mentioned, what was it you said about the privet? There's a lot of privet on this property. A lot of it is outside of our jurisdiction, but you're intending to remove privet that's within our jurisdiction? Is that what I thought you heard you say?
That's correct.
Okay, all of it, okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Bob.
Go ahead. I'm gonna
Elise?
regroup here.
Yeah, Elise?
I'm going to pile on about the size of the stone terrace and the lawn area. And as I've been looking at the lawn area, there's no intention for permanent irrigation, I assume? That's not part of the plan?
Well, they won't get it.
Just so you know, that would not be,
Okay.
other than temporary, to get everything established.
Okay. Did you regroup?
I have regrouped, yes.
Okay.
I could also, I think I'm echoing comments that Bob had about the pool fence. You may be able to fix that problem if you're able to reduce the size of the terrace and move the pool fence back. But I think what you have is a property-to-property line pool fence, or more or less, and which extends into, I'm not sure if it's in the NDZ, I think it is touching on it. So
Seems to be.
I echo those comments as well. I think that your performance standards discussion, whoever put that together, I guess it was your part of it. Maybe using earlier, we updated our performance standards, it's dated July 11th,
Okay.
2023.
23?
And I think you need to update your performance standard
Okay.
discussion to include that. And one of the items that you'll discover in there is that we have a regulation now that no more than 35% of the outer R be covered without a variance. And I don't know what the percentage here is, but if you count the patio surround as coverage, which it should, I'm guessing it's far in excess of that.
Okay.
So you'll need to have a discussion of why that's necessary. That coverage is necessary in the outer aura. And also, okay, so somebody said then the outer aura, we have at least 75% native, is that what I think I heard you say?
That's correct.
I'm not sure that those are straight natives.
Hey,
some of the-
look at the schedule, I think we could make them straight natives.
Yeah, I mean, for example, a Hollywood juniper, I don't think is a straight native.
Correct.
No, it is not, you're right.
Things like that. So yeah, if you would mind, take a look at your plant list. 100% native, straight native in the NDZ, 75 in the outer aura. I'm not sure we need any more hydrangeas in the resource area, because you've got 140 outside of the resource area. It's probably enough.
Noted.
And possibly a bigger variety of what's in.
A little more diversity would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, yeah, I think that's enough for now, but anyway. I feel a need for a site visit because this is a complex site.
So what I'm hearing is, first of all, we would like a site visit, which, Bob has his hand up, so I'll let him speak first. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I was just gonna inquire about the drip irrigation. Was there any plan for the foundation plants?
The planting within the pool area would have permanent irrigation.
Within the 100, we don't
Yeah,
allow
so-
irrigation, permanent irrigation.
Yeah, and that will be affected by the turf areas as well. If there are any other turf areas within the 100, we don't allow any permanent irrigation. So you might want to think think about, I don't know if there are any more, but those areas can't be irrigated, permanent turf grass.
Anything else, Bob?
That's all, thank you.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is we need to know about the stockade fence, whether that's staying, you'll at least remove the ivy from it. We'd like a site visit, which Crystal, you can discuss with Crystal, and then she'll get a hold of us. We've got concerns about the patio and the pool and the retaining wall and the lawn, all in the 50, so we'll need some answers on that. The straight natives, the 35% coverage in the aura. Is there anything else that I may have missed that we had concerns about? The irrigation I mentioned. So, given all of that, when would you like to come back?
So the site visit, it sounds like you want to have it scheduled so that you can all attend as a group, as
Yes.
opposed to, I assume you all went individually.
No, we usually do them as a group.
Yeah.
But you did go individually.
We all did go.
Oh, yes, we've gone individually, but we would like to have somebody there that can make it a little bit more clear visually
Okay.
as a group, so that it's not us just looking at the plans and looking at the staking and figuring it out.
So I would say you have a meeting on the 25th, which I think is too ambitious to try and get all these things done for
Right,
that.
I agree.
What do you have after October 25th?
We have November 1st, but the deadline is October 17th, so that's coming up for getting all of your modifications or whatever into us. Then we have November 8th, and we have November 15th,
Yeah.
and then you're into December.
We think maybe November 8th? I think November.
That would be the soonest, right? I mean,
Right.
It really hinges on how soon we can all get together.
Right.
Okay.
What, can we put it on, the 25th? It's definitely too soon, and I think November 1st is pushing it. So can we, for now, continue it to November 8th?
Sure.
And then we'll see how far we get in the meantime.
Okay, that we can do.
Madam Chairman, if I could make just a suggestion. Given that the design team is here now, if you want to throw out a couple of days for a site visit while you're all here, we might be able to tell you if there were days that we could get at least somebody from each of the firms present for a site visit.
The problem is we also don't have Janet on, and she will want to be a part of that.
Just a thought.
I know, I appreciate it, and it's a good thought.
I mean, another way is to get together
Some
and give us some
dates.
dates, and then we'll see if we can hit one of those.
And then, yeah,
Because you guys may be more booked than we are.
We can do that before we leave.
that's fine.
Yeah.
If you can give us the dates that might work for your team, then I'll forward those to Crystal, and she can put together the survey for us, and we'll figure it out quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we need a motion. We're November 8th.
I'd like to make a motion to continue.
Yeah, your thing.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue 162 Shore Road to November 8th.
Gordon, second.
Elise.
Aye.
Bob.
All right.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Bob. Did
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next on the agenda are 3 certificates of compliance. The first one on the agenda is 22 Little Oak Lane, Michelle E. Smith, Emery Cottage Trust, map 4C, parcel 65-WG, SE 10-3375. Remove invasive species, reestablish and maintain a pre-existing pathway, plant native vegetation for ecological enhancement and restoration. I visited the site yesterday, and the proposed project was to remove a majority of seedling pitch pines that were concentrated in one area. Those have been taken out. It was about 1,500 square feet in the adjacent upland resource area. The pathway has been cut, and it's a little overgrown, but still very passable. Additionally, oak trees were pruned within the vista corridor, and existing path would be cut back a few feet on either side as it presently exists, or did exist at that time. Woody plant material and herbaceous plant material were proposed and planted for the project. That was mitigation. The plants will be installed. They have been. Let's see. And there was some invasive material that was removed. I looked at the mitigation plantings. They all look pretty good. I walked the pathway. Looked good. The pine grove has been taken out. The order's been recorded. There is a as-built plan that was filed by O'Reilly. The order's been recorded. Let's see if there's anything else. Everything on the cover page for the certificates of compliance has been completed in accordance with our requirements. So after inspection, I would recommend that you approve a full certificate of compliance for this particular project.
Okay, were there any questions before we do a motion? Okay, then I guess we're ready for a motion. Your little,
I would like to move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 22 Little Oak Lane.
Gordon, second.
all right, Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I say aye. That's approved. Thank you. Okay, Paul, next one.
Yes, if you could take, there are 2 more, 67 Uncle Albert's Drive, John and Sheila Sharon, or Sheeran, map 11E, parcel RS, SE 10-2037, new dwelling, new guest house, and vegetation control. And then 67 Albert's Drive, same applicants, map 11E, parcel R5, SE 10-2962, pool patio. I'd like to take the 2962 out of order because no work was done on that one. So basically, all we have to do is just issue the certificate that no work was done. Very easy.
Okay.
Okay? So I'll let you take your vote,
Okay.
and then we can move on to the other one.
I'd like to move that the certificate of compliance for 67 Uncle Albert's Drive, which specifically the SC 10-2962, be approved, given that there was no work done.
Gordon, second.
All right, Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I say aye. All right,
Okay,
let's,
the next one's a little complicated. That's why I asked Susan Ledoux. You can see she's up on the screen now. This is SE 10-2037. It was a little complicated to go through, so I asked Susan if she could come in today and just explain what was happening with this project. We had an order that lapsed, and then there was an amendment to an order. Some of the work wasn't done, some of it was. So, Susan, take it away.
All right, thank you, Paul. Susan Ledoux from Eastward Companies. Actually, there were 4 orders issued on this property from 2004 to 2014. 2037 is the very first order that was issued in 2004 to the original owners of the property. And as Paul said, a new dwelling, one-bedroom guest house, septic system within the 100-foot setback, impervious driveway were proposed and approved. There was an amended order to selectively prune for view toward the pond, and that was extended in 2007 to allow an additional year to get the work done. But the owners only installed the dwelling foundation with a plywood decking to seal the foundation during that time. And then there were subsequent orders to do the work. And then Eastward bought the property in 2013. And so you just closed one order that was issued in 2014. And the other orders on the property were closed, and I think it was just missed that this original order was never closed out. And as I said, the new dwelling was never completed, the guest house was not completed, the septic system was installed later under a subsequent order, and the pervious driveway was installed for the dwelling under a subsequent order. And if you look at the photos, you can see there's no guest house, there's no pool, and that was in the one you just closed. It is a little convoluted, but it was the original order. It should have been closed when the subsequent orders were issued, and it just was missed.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
In addition to that, there was some vegetation management for vista pruning in back of the house, Susan, that was part of this, that was approved and done, I believe.
Yes, yes. Sorry, Paul, I did miss that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I'm sure you're all really confused, but it's basically some of the work was done, some of it wasn't. They'd like to close out both these orders. There's a sale pending on it. I did inspect it yesterday. I can represent that what Susan just said is exactly what occurred on the property. Some things just weren't done. And others were. The septic and the driveway was done, and then the vista pruning was done. And there was an amendment to this as well, which made it even more convoluted or complicated. Having said that, after going through the entire file, I would say that we should just close both of these out at this time.
All right,
Primarily
and
because some of the work wasn't done, and then what was done has been done in accordance with what the orders required.
Okay, any questions, comments?
I do have a question, Paul.
Yep.
The Blue Flax monitoring report
Yes.
that was included, I think, with both of these certificate requests.
Yes, Susan.
What was that monitoring report for?
Was it the vegetation?
That's associated with the view management?
Do you want me to jump in, Paul?
Yes, please, Susan.
That was for an order 2975 that was issued in 2014, and we had Blue Flax prepare this for us when we still were proposing the guest house and pool, and I believe we had already started work on the house. And Blue Flax did complete their planting, and that was the monitoring report that you saw. We did not install the guest house in the pool, in the driveway to the pool, or to the guest house, I'm sorry. But that order was closed out. That included that Blue Flax plan. I think I included that just so you can see that vegetation mitigation was installed and the delineation was installed, and they are still in place.
So the mitigation was put in before the work that the mitigation was for was performed?
You'd have to answer that, Susan.
Yeah. I'm just looking back at my notes. This is why this is a crazy project.
Yeah.
The house was built. The circular drive in front of the house was installed, and then we had Blue Flax. Yeah. install all the plantings. In anticipation, we got approval for the guest house and the pool for marketing purposes. And then the folks that came along and bought it in 2015 had no interest in the guest house and pool. So we had all this beautiful mitigation installed and the delineation, and it turned out there was lawn area where the pool and the guest house would have been built.
Okay, well, this is a first for me. So this mitigation wasn't for the house or the driveway by any chance? It was just.
Not specifically, no.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
The other question, how could it be missed? I thought that these were recorded with the Registry of Deeds, and when a house gets, this property was sold at least a couple of times, it looks like. Is it something we should do better in some way? Any ideas?
I don't know. No, well, just for me, I don't know how the 2004, which expired with the extension in 2008, I don't know how that was missed exactly, and remained open. And then the other was still active, I believe, when we sold the property. So maybe we exited and forgot about it, I guess is the simplest way to explain that. And we had closed, and there was a COC issued on a subsequent order. So maybe we thought it covered that, not specifically, the 2962, but the subsequent, yeah.
I guess maybe. Go ahead.
I can't help you, Bob. I was only 10 years old back then.
Well, I was a little older than that. Okay. I guess maybe, Paul, I can talk with you later about how this process actually works. I may misunderstand. I thought the registry would, as a matter of course, send out some sort of communication.
So Crystal has her hand up, so maybe she
Okay,
can
all right.
clarify something. Go ahead, Crystal.
So now, whenever somebody files a notice of intent, we look back into the file to see if there are any open orders. And if there are, we ask them to close them unless they're something that was within 3 years. I don't think that was ever done in the past. So a lot of them were missed. And a lot of the time, the real estate agents don't understand that part. So they do get missed quite often.
Well, when I started 10 years ago, there was a heavy emphasis on closing out old orders. You'd be surprised how many old orders that were out there that did not have certificates. Sometimes a property just doesn't get sold. Somebody owns it for a long time. They don't borrow against the house. There's a lien. They don't really care. All of a sudden, they decide to sell it 15 years later, and then that's when these issues would arise. But we had no tracking system in place, and Crystal's correct. Now, this would not have happened in recent history, but back in the day, this was a fairly common thing to happen. And nobody's fault. It's just the way things were done back then, and a lot of it depended on the homeowner coming forward and requesting that certificate of compliance. And a lot of times they didn't, because they didn't need to. They weren't. There was an encumbrance on the house that they weren't concerned with. No transfer, so it just sat out there.
Okay, I guess I had assumed that the title company would, since these are recorded, that the title company should be the ones who are telling the sellers and the buyers that there's an outstanding item.
Well, not if you don't have a transfer, they're not going to get involved.
Well, yeah, for within the family or whatever, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it should happen.
Yeah.
So otherwise, it's up to us. By us, I mean the Conservation Department to catch these.
Yeah, that's generally what we've been doing. As Crystal said, she goes through the files, and I did it, when I was the agent several times. I'd go back and look to see if there was an outstanding order. Buck Upson, who used to serve on the commission, this was one of his prime issues, and we were trying to clean as many up as we could. I mean, we had some that came in that were, 15, 20 years old, that, longer, that just nobody closed them out. And it became a bone of contention, and we're doing better with it now. But, obviously, when we look at these files and we go through them, if we find anything, we can bring it to your attention. This is just an unusual one. And I think Susan explained it very eloquently, that this is how this thing sort of developed with the owners and what they wanted to do when they were trying to market the property at the time. Things changed, orders lapsed, amendments were made, and it just got very confusing. And again, so
Yeah, well,
good news is we're cleaning it up today.
Yeah, well, in this particular case, it looks like no harm, no foul, but I was just speaking to the more general case. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay.
All right, so your recommendation is we close it?
Yes. Close them out.
Get rid of them. Okay.
All right, I make a motion, so we've already done one, right?
Thank you,
So
Susan.
I make a motion that we approve the certificate of compliance for 67 Uncle Albert's Drive. This is the SC 10-2037.
Gordon, second.
Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Mary? Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, last on the agenda are the two continued enforcement orders for 65.
Just a minute, Paul. Mr., I think Capitolupo
Okay.
is here, so he may want to speak. So why don't you open them and we'll let him speak.
All right. Be happy to do that. Let me open his. 77 Geranium Drive, Lawrence P. Capitolupo, Revocable Trust, map 8D, parcel 17-R2, unauthorized removal of topping of trees in a resource area. I was unaware that he was coming. I did speak to their consultant earlier yesterday, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
Mr.
floor, sir.
Capitolupo, you can go.
Sure, I don't have a consultant, so
You need to turn it on. Yes, thank you.
Yes, Larry Capitolupo. I don't have a consultant, so I'm here to speak for myself.
Okay,
Okay,
go ahead.
news to me.
Well, I'm not sure what you'd like to hear from me. I mean, this is the third time I've been here. First time I told you, I've been living on the marsh for the last 50 years, 30 years on one side, 20 years on the side that I currently reside on. And the lot has not changed. It is a very stable bank. For the past 20 years, every 2-3 years, I've trimmed done pruning on the property. Haven't cut any trees down. There are several large trees that are there, 3 or 4 pine trees that are there that have grown for I don't know how many years, maybe 30 years or something like that, at least 30 foot tall. They've never been touched, they've never been pruned. The area that I have cut is a stable bank. The cutting has always been done the same way. It's usually done by hand, but I think recently, I haven't been there, but I think recently it's been done with a chainsaw, as in small ones, just to make the job go quicker, and then they remove all the debris that they collect and take it away. But I've not taken any plants out, I've not taken any roots out, I've not done anything to the banking, other than the view pruning, which I just described. Subsequently, after I was called to come to the meeting back in August, I've met with Paul on 2 occasions. On the second occasion, he brought in an additional consultant by the name of George Riley, who I guess is an environmental engineer. Is that right, Paul?
He's an environmental consultant. He does a lot of landscape work, and, just for the record, at that meeting, I thought you had retained him. At least that's what I heard. But
No, he offered his services to me, sounded very high cost, and I said, well, send me a proposal, do something. He quoted me $1,000 or $1,500. I asked him what he would do. He said, well, I would represent you and come up with a plan. And so I said, well, I don't I'm not going to spend $1,000 or $1,500. I really would like to hear more from the board and what I've done wrong, and would like to know what is that you want me to do.
Go ahead. You want to say something? Oh. Okay. Paul, are you done?
I'm just gonna sit back and listen.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, anybody? Bob, I assume.
Well, I remember when this came to our attention, it was a year and a half ago, maybe? I'm sure, somewhere between a year and a half ago, right when Nikki Smith came on as the agent. I think it's the first time I ever met her. And I think the commission got a call that there was clear-cutting or vegetation removal being performed on these two properties, yours and another one nearby. And we went and looked at it. And it looked to us like it was the vegetation was being topped.
Yes.
Within the resource area for review for quite a ways. And so the Wetlands Protection Act and also the associated Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Regulations prohibit that sort of vegetation removal or cutting without a permit from the Conservation Commission. So I understand that it's been going on for decades. But the Conservation Commission or the conservation agent doesn't go around looking for these types of violations, as it were. Only when they're brought to our attention, typically, do we then step in, and that's what we've tried to do here. And so, what we would like to have done, in the very in most basic sense, is for it not to happen anymore. And then that's where your consulting would come into play, where he could come before us and say, here's what has been happening, here's what I propose or we propose as a responsible way to manage the vegetation here so that the environment is protected while you also, if possible, can retain the view that you've obviously been trying to have for all these years. So that is why I think that Paul was trying to put you together with an ecological restoration specialist, because they are versed in this sort of thing. And they're the ones who could prepare a plan that we can then look at and react to and either adjust, approve, deny, or whatever. So that's the project as I know it and recall it.
So Paul and I did talk to him for, Paul, what, 15, 20 minutes or so?
Paul's still sitting back and waiting.
I think he's muted. Paul, you're muted, I think.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
We met on site and with Mr. Riley. We talked for about 30 to 45 minutes about what kind of a restoration plan that Mr. Riley would put together. Some general costs were mentioned, and then we spoke to Mrs. Dixon at the same time. And just so everyone understands the context, Mrs. Dixon was retaining Mr. Riley, so I thought it would be a good idea, since the properties abut one another, that Mr. Riley be introduced to this gentleman, and that maybe we could resolve this in the same fashion that we may end up resolving the Dixon one. But I did explain to the property owner that you can't just do nothing, and that's not gonna fly.
Right.
I think I was as gentle and articulate as I could be about how these things kind of go. It's unfortunate. I was the one who showed up at these properties, and I had no choice but to make the commission aware that this cutting was there, and it had to be addressed. We do it on other properties. We have to be fair and impartial with people. So we can't just ignore somebody and then go after somebody else when something like this occurs. But I did make it clear that it was not going to be a situation where I thought you could just say, well, I've been doing it for 50 years. That certainly is a consideration the commission can take into consideration when it's deciding what kind of a restoration order it wants to put together, as Bob just said. But I also made it clear that you know, you weren't just gonna say, okay, that's fine, everything's good now, we're done. There has to be some sort of a restoration order put together. And we were looking at something that was, I thought, pretty reasonable. And I wasn't aware that you hadn't retained him because I just spoke to him yesterday. But anyway, that's all I have to add at the moment.
So the only thing I would ask for you to comment again about was his comments to me about what he was proposing, which my recollection is that his suggestion was the next time you do the view pruning, that you remove some of the non-native plantings on the hillside. And I thought, boy, that's crazy. I mean, the reason that you don't touch anything on the hillside is to keep the bank in place. And his suggestion was, well, the next time you do it, you have to remove some of the things that are non-native. So I thought, well, that's worth an explanation here, so I'll come.
Okay.
Oh, there's a lot of vine on the property, a lot of invasives that, you know, could be thinned out to see what we're really dealing with. There's some tree debris that was suggested, you know, some stumpage that be taken out, or not stumpage, but logs that have been topped and cut and left on the ground. But it was, you know, we had a general discussion about that.
Paul, that's the property next door to me. I think you're talking about the logs
No,
on the ground
no,
and the
it was
cutting.
No, it was both of them. So, I mean, I think I've said everything. I don't want to repeat myself. I think, you know, I've told you what the history is. That's all I can do is explain it to the property owner as best I can. It's up to them to decide what it is they're going to do. And I thought we had a pretty reasonable approach for both property owners.
Go ahead. I think, okay, I think what we need is something has to be done. So we do need a proposed plan on what you plan to do, because the cutting is not allowed, and unless you have come to us and requested to have a view window. And so our goal is that this stops, and I don't know the condition of the trees, because very often when you cut them many, many, many times, they're unable to keep growing in the way they should. So I think usually we have a specialist who will come before us with a recommended plan to take care of the violation. And so that's really what we are looking for at this point. I don't know what more to say about it that hasn't been said already. Reactions or?
Well, so I have to hire somebody to speak on my behalf?
No, but we need a plan. We need something that says this is what will be done to rectify the situation, what was done. Very often it is, you know, there will be plantings and invasive removal, and yes, if you remove things, you're worried about your bank, but if you put other things in that are native and will do well and maybe won't grow tall, you'll still have your view, your bank is still stable. So I'm not saying you can't do it yourself, but we need a plan. We need a course of action to take care of this violation.
So is there anything that you can show me that would be suitable, that somebody else has done on a similar gradient?
That's really not our role.
Yeah.
We react to plans put before us by experts. and we comment, prove, deny. That is all we're allowed to do, in fact.
Yeah, Mary has a comment too.
I just wanted to understand, it seems like you don't understand that what you've done in the past, even if it was never addressed before, is a violation. And the question first is, if you want to continue to do any of the cutting and to have, for view easement or for whatever reason, then we need a plan. And you have to acknowledge that what you've done is not allowed, and therefore you're willing to make some changes in order to remedy the situation. But I'm not sure I've heard that you're actually understanding that that's our opinion.
Right, thank you. And unfortunately, every property is its own entity, so it's hard, first of all, we can't provide somebody else's plans, and that, as Bob said, is not our role. Our role is to evaluate plans that are proposed in front of us. But, I mean, something has to be done. So if you want to make up your own plan, you can give it a go and come before us with your own plan. If you want to hire somebody, you can still represent yourself. They'll also, part of it is they will represent you, and they will discuss why they came up with the plan they did. So.
I mean, it seems terribly unfair. I mean, I'm thinking about my next door neighbors, two houses down, 3 houses. Paul's seen them before if you haven't been there. But, I mean, there's one house that goes all the way down to the water with yard and
Well, unfortunately, as we said, it depends when we're notified of an issue. That's when we can begin to act. We don't know until somebody reports something has taken place.
You know, we would be obligated to act in that case.
Yes.
We are obligated to act when it comes to our attention that a violation of the act has occurred. So then that's our job. Otherwise, you know, if somebody rats out your other neighbors, then we would look at that as well.
Yeah. If somebody else is reported, then it becomes something that we need to act on. But that's the only way. Just as everything you've heard today, we're given permission to go on their property, and that's how we begin to question what's going on and have some ability to act. Unless it comes to us, we can't do anything. Our hands are tied.
okay.
And if you have more questions, you can always contact Paul again.
Well, one of the benefits, sir, would be that you'd end up with a plan that would allow you to continue to probably have the view that you have, and you'd be in compliance. So that's one benefit. That's one way to look at it.
Correct. But as I said, if you have questions, and then I know there was going to be a request to continue this, and obviously we need to continue it. Do you have an opinion as to when you might want to come back before us?
Well, what my next door neighbor has already requested a change?
I haven't heard what the date is yet, because we haven't opened that one. Paul, was it the first meeting?
First available meeting in November, if possible.
Which is November 1st.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me give you some unsolicited advice.
Sure, appreciate it.
And that
That's why
is.
I came here.
And that is that in my experience now approaching 5.5 years on the commission, those who attempt to represent themselves in what could be a fairly complex matter here, a restoration plan, encounter a lot of difficulties. I would think twice about trying to do that, especially since you've got someone on board already who has already put together apparently some plan, which we haven't seen, for the adjacent property under similar circumstances. In my opinion, and this is just free advice, it would be money well spent to get on board with whatever he is doing, and so we can deal with them both at once. He's a specialist, he's an expert. We're not experts in this. If we were being asked to put together a plan, we'd be hard pressed to do it. He's been doing it a long time, he's qualified. He's been before us many times, he knows the ropes, he knows what we want, what we don't want. It will just go better. But it's up to you, obviously, it's your decision.
Well, it sounds like it's the only reasonable option to proceed on.
Not the only one, but it's a good one.
It may be
take your
the
advice.
fastest way to resolve everything.
All right, I'll come back for meeting number 4.
Do you want to continue till the same meeting, November 1st?
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. If we could have a motion for 77, and then we'll do
Motion to continue 77 Geranium Drive.
it here.
Make a motion to continue 77 Geranium Drive to November 1st.
Gordon, second.
All right, Elise.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Okay, we will continue yours to November 1st. Thank you so much.
Madam
Okay,
Chair,
Paul.
Okay, so I'll just read the legal notice for 65 Geranium Drive, Elaine E. Dixon, map 8D, parcel 16R2A. Unauthorized removal and topping of trees in a resource area, and the applicants requested a continuance to that same date, November 1st.
Okay, could we have a motion?
Make motion to continue 66 Geranium Drive to November 1st.
65.
65.
Sorry, 65. Oh, my glasses. 65.
Gordon, second.
All right, Elise.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Bob, we need you back to do our motions.
Oh, what do
when
you
I'm chair.
say? What are you saying?
He's not happy doing them, but only when I'm chair, gotta chair it, so don't worry. All right, Paul, next thing.
Next on the agenda is the last, the next to the last, minutes to be approved, August 23rd, 2023.
Okay, were there any modification changes, the same thing, additions, corrections? Okay. They're in the Dropbox. They were at the top. Yeah, the very first
There it
item.
is, I got it. I'm just going to quickly open, I don't think I had anything, while anybody else
I
is
didn't,
scrolling.
when I looked, I didn't see anybody had made any
I didn't find any.
modifications.
I didn't find any.
And Bob Delvecchio, I don't think you had modifications. Mary, anything?
Modifications, Mary, anything?
Nope, I'm all set. I don't know what to.
Yeah, I don't have
Okay.
anything. We're good.
All right, can we have a motion, please?
Motion to approve the minutes from August 23rd, 2023.
Gordon, second.
Okay, Elise.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I say aye, those are approved. Okay, Paul.
Last, any unforeseen items brought before the commission?
Does anybody have anything? I don't.
Was the group going to come back with dates, or were we going to do that?
They were, but I don't see them, so that'll be a, stay tuned. And Paul, I will make sure to include you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
always. Oh, you're welcome. Anything else? Doesn't look like it. So,
Motion to adjourn.
Gordon, second.
Elise.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I say aye. We're done. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bob did a good job. With these